Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 5:07, and the Finance Committee will now come to order.
Item 6, PCI 13114, a resolution requesting former Councilman Cushman to present his pension figures and calculations to the City Council.
Mr. Chairman, I move PCR 13114 be moved to the floor for discussion.
Second. PCI 13114 has been moved to the floor for discussion without a recommendation by Councilman Chardonnay, seconded by Councilman Lattiser. Questions from the public? We're moving to the floor for discussion.
No. So they would speak now.
You should speak to the committee, because in order to speak on the floor, you'd have to have unanimous consent to waive the rules. Just identify yourself for the record, if you will, Bob.
Robert Cushman. First of all, I want to thank Councilman Marola for moving this resolution along. I want to also thank the council for taking the opportunity to hear this. I just have a short little presentation I want to make that I think as to why this is important, and this is something that you should consider to allow me to present my information. And I just want you to ponder this question. As elected officials, are you setting policies and approving budgets that are making it affordable for citizens to live in Warwick? And can we do a better job? Years ago, when I attended Bryant College, it's now called Bryant University, I studied and I received a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, went on and got a Master's in Business Administration. And I just remember during that time, you know, some of the skills that I developed, you know, through this education was some of the work that I did right now, producing this information for the City Council, looking at trends, looking at data, and even presenting this to groups of people. So it's something I've done in the past. I've actually did projects on this as a MBA student. And also, when I look at the information I presented, it's even current to my work environment, my work experience. I work currently at CVS Health. I'm a business analyst. And it brought to mind a project that I recently worked on. And CVS owns 7,000 stores throughout the United States. We have 18 distribution centers. I work on the team that's responsible for some of the logistics. And I think maybe Councilman Lattiser could, you know, understand some of the stuff I'm talking about. And one of the projects that we had, they were interested in determining what would happen because we're building new stores. Our DCs are getting different kinds of capacity. We want to make sure our DCs are functioning properly. What would happen if we had to move 100 stores to this DC, 200 stores from this DC? So what I was asked to do is I took actual information that we had on what was going on in these DCs, and I created a model as part of my work. And then what I was able to do with this model was able to give it to the directors so they could take this actual data and they can plug in different scenarios and do different things and figure out if we did this, what would happen? Very similar to the information I want to present to you, if you allow me to, and some information I'd like to give to you in the future. Another example, I was the executive director of a nonprofit youth sports organization. And during that time, I had to deal with 40, 50 coaches, 30, 40 officials, game officials, hundreds of parents, hundreds of students. And one of the things that I implemented as the director was an evaluation program. It's very important to identify how well you're doing in your job. How well are you performing in your job? And what I did over the years is I took these evaluations from the parents and from a lot of other people, and I can identify the trends, what was going on in the organization. You know, and certain things I wanted an approval rating of 95% where people were satisfied. And I looked over the years, and for example, I had a problem one year, over the course of 2 or 3 years, where I saw the ratings of what the parents were saying the officials were doing. It was going down. I didn't like that. So I took a look at the data. I said, we got a problem here. We're trending down. What can we do to fix this? Met with the officials, identified the problem, put policies in place to fix the problem. And guess what? A few years later, we're trending back up. Same type of situation that I'm talking about with the city of Warwick in terms of the presentation and the data that I will give you. I will show you in this presentation the trends that are developed in the city and how we can go about doing things maybe a little bit differently. When we look at the budget document, we just went through the budget process back in May. You open that document, you're looking at 3 years worth of information. Fiscal 2013 actual expenses. You look at the fiscal 2014 budget, and then you looked at the fiscal 2015 proposed budget. You're making decisions based on really 2 years worth of actual data. What my analysis is talking about is 10 years of data. You're not going to get that information from anybody else in this entire city. You're not going to get that information from the actuaries. You're not going to get that from your healthcare consultants. Nobody else in the state has put a model together, in this city, and will present you with data over the entire decade. That's what I'm proposing to show you. In my opinion, you cannot, and in my professional opinion too, you cannot identify the trends that are occurring in a city like Warwick by looking at 2 years of information. You have to look at a larger span than that. And just to let you know, I've worked with Councilman Marola over the years. Councilman Marola used a lot of my information at this year's budget hearings. And one of the things that we identified, and I'm just going to give you one example, and this is what my analysis showed. We looked at the road resurfacing budget. It's been a hot topic in Warwick, because now we're looking at borrowing money to repair our roads. Well, 10 years ago in 2004, we spent $672,000 on that budget to repair our roads. Slowly, by 2008, it was down to $99,000. So, me as an analyst, I would ask that question, why? What's going on? Why don't we have any money to repair our roads? From 2008 to 2012, you never got above $200,000. We all know the conditions of our roads. We've neglected our roads. Is the answer to go borrow $5 million for a 20-year bond, which is going to cost you $8 million by the end of the 20 years, and in that time, your roads are going to need to be resurfaced again? So this is just one trend that we have a problem. And there's a lot of other trends that I will point out to you in this presentation, and there's things that can be done to fix this. So, to close, my original question was, as elected officials, are you setting policies and approving budgets that are making it affordable for citizens to live in Warwick? What I just looked at the other day in the Beacon was really alarming. I looked at, this is the tax lien notice that was in the paper in Thursday's Beacon. There's 1,500 properties on this. So if every single one of these properties, these names, these residents represented 4 people, that's 6,000 people in the city of Warwick. If you take out your calculator, we have about 85,000 people in the city of Warwick. You're talking about 7% of our population might lose their home. This is for water and sewer liens or assessments that haven't been paid. This is utility bills. So I think when you ponder that question I asked, we can do a better job. When we look at what's going on in the city with the tax increases and everything else that's going on, I was on the city council, I was on the school committee. This is the thing that drove me to do this. This isn't political, this is about numbers. It's about analyzing the numbers. It's about identifying the trends. And then it's about asking the question, just like I did with that youth league. My officials are trending down. There's things going on that people don't like. We sit down together as adults, Republicans, Democrats, I don't care who you are, independents, and we figure out a way to stop this. This is disgraceful for a city the size of Warwick, that we have 7 pages in our local paper
I'm looking at this right now. My neighbors are in here. I can't believe it. All of our neighbors are in here. There's families in here. We have a lot of problems in this city. I am offering my services to you at no charge. You just saw how much the school department is paying for outside consultants. They put an RFP out, $200,000 to $500,000. I've been working on this data for probably 10 years, putting these models together. And I have a lot of good information I can share with you, and it's not costing you a dime. If you contracted out a consulting firm to do what I did, you'd probably easily be spending six figures. So all I'm asking you, the data's been verified as accurate. We're talking about pension data, we're talking about healthcare data, we're talking about 10 years worth of information that I will gladly give to every single council member here. So when you start deliberating line items, you can look at what that line item was 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and you could start asking some good questions. Why is this happening? Why can't we fix our schools? Why do we have 1,500 people that potentially could lose their houses? So I'm opening up myself to any kind of questions you want to ask, but this is the value of the presentation that I would like to give. It's going to open eyes up in the city, and hopefully it's going to open up a dialogue in the city so people can understand what's going on, so we could all sit down together, the mayor, this council, the school committee, as elected representatives, and we could start identifying the problems, the trends, and this isn't going to be easy. But before we can develop a solution, we really need to figure out what the problem is. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Questions? Questions from members of the committee?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Councilwoman Vella Wilkinson, please.
Thank you. Mr. Cushman, could you tell me, are you going to make the same offer to the school committee?
You know, unfortunately, I do not have the information over that period of time. I was working on that over the years. The school department totally changed their accounting methods because there was a statewide mandate a few years ago. So the information that I had, I cannot get it down to the line item detail that I have for the city. What I can do is I can show you over 10 years the spending levels and the trends between the city and the schools, and I think you'll be very interested to see that. But to get down to 10 years worth of line items at the school department level, I don't have that information.
I have a follow-on question for the speaker, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair. I have a follow-on question, if that's all right with you. I have a follow-on question for the speaker, if that's all right with you.
Go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. What about with the RFP that they put out, Mr. Cushman? Do you think that you might speak to the school committee? I know that there appears to be some additional concern on the school district side of the House, that while they feel that the analysis is worthwhile, that they believe that spending the money, as you've mentioned, could be put to other uses. Do you think that you would be offering your services pro bono like you're doing for the city council?
You know, I'm happy to serve and do whatever anybody wants me to do in terms of analyzing stuff. You know, one of the things I would like to do, you know, the information I'm going to present to you is information in the past, and just bear with me for 1 minute, because what I want to talk to you about is the next step that needs to be taken. You know, we're looking at the past 10 years to see what the trends are. We need to stop. We're looking at the present. We know what's going on in the present. We need to stop building models to start looking at what's going on in the future. We can get the data. We can get the data from the actuaries as to what it's going to cost us for pensions. We can get information for health care. We can put some assumptions in for how the budget's going to grow over the next, let's say, 5 years, 10 years. We could look at how our payroll is going to grow. We should put this model together, and then what we should do is we should be able to figure out what is the requirements going to be in terms of the revenue growth that we're going to need to accumulate over the years to meet these demands? The employees haven't had raises in 3 years. I doubt the negotiations are going on right now with 3 more years of non-raises. What's the impact all these raises? We're losing federal funds for 17 firefighters, millions of dollars. The taxpayers are going to have to pick up that bill too. So where are we going to get all this money from? Are we going to be able to drive economic development high enough to get the additional revenue? Keep in mind, we can only go 4% higher on the tax levy.
So if we can get more economic development in, what that's going to do is cause tax relief for the rest of the citizens. But the fact of the matter is, we're blind here. We don't know what's going on in the future, but we can know. That's the troubling, disturbing thing to me, is that you have the resources, you have the experts to get you the data. I would be happy to work with you to get the actuarials, to get the other people, and let's build this model so then we could see 1 year, 5 years, 10 years from now, how many tens of millions of dollars we're going to need. And then we could say, how high is the tax rate going to have to go in order to support this? Or on the other hand, where can we start cutting city spending to balance the budget? We don't know that because nobody wants to ask that question, because it's going to develop some real tough circumstances, and it's going to be real tough decisions that this city council and the mayor are going to have to make. Final point. I don't know how we could say that we're the 15th best place to live in the entire country. I doubt whoever created that report used that document to determine if we're 15th best. Because I would say we're probably 15th from the bottom, for God's sake, when we have 1,500 people that are potentially going to lose their homes.
I'm satisfied. I don't have any additional questions. Thank you.
Any other council members for comment? Just briefly, Bob, okay? I'm sure your information is very important to the future of the city. The forum is what I have a problem with, because if we allow you to do this, then we have to allow other, maybe people from the airport, and to give us something similar, because they know a lot of the airport stuff. I go back to the 70s, okay? So I think a proper forum maybe is to discuss with the council individually or small groups that don't violate ethics. I would, me personally, be interested to do that with you if it's one-on-one, because I will go way back, and I will go back to the 70s, and I will tell you what the numbers are in the 70s. And my only point is, yes, you're right, we go forward, but how do we get to where we are? The 240 mil, that's what it was in the 70s. Okay? See, so my interest is certainly in the information that you have, the forum to present it. I don't want to set a precedent so that any other of the 82,000 people in the city could have the same forum.
Can I have a few minutes to respond to that? Well, first of all, I do have a full-time job, Councilman, so I can't be spending my time meeting one-on-one with the council. And in addition, I think the information I'm presenting, I think every single taxpayer, every single union member, every single employee has a right to know what's going on in the city. So, you know, I don't think this is something that should be done behind closed doors. In addition, this council has allowed outside groups to come in on many different occasions. We had the Gun Alliance come in here. We had the Gay and Lesbian Alliance come in here, and we basically moved them to the top of the council agenda. And we were very courteous to them, and we allowed them to come in, and we allowed them to testify on topics that you have no control over. So you've set the precedent already, where I've seen groups being busted these people don't even live in Warwick. So to kind of sweep this thing under the rug, I don't think that's the right tack to take. I think it should be a presentation where everybody has an opportunity to listen. You know, and just so as to my credibility, you know, we're not talking about somebody who hasn't been actively involved in government. I've served on the school committee as an elected official. I've served on the city council. I was a member of the finance committee. So I think I bring a level of, you know, knowledge and wisdom on this topic. You've seen me every single year at the budget hearings. I've given this council members countless analysis, paperwork, documents of what I've done in the past. So, you know, frankly, I'm just not the regular average Joe that's walking off the street, and I'm willing to give you basically hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars worth of information and service at no cost, which I think will be totally valuable to you in the city.
Well, as I indicated, I don't have an issue with you, your background, and the information that you would provide. My issue is with the forum that you're going to provide it with, and I'd like to discuss other things that how do we get here? How do we get there in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, and then 10 years when I wasn't here? And now, where are we today? Where are we going? And I agree with you. But we got here. We have a 40-year plan, and I don't want to get into specifics, and I'll be happy.
Well, see, Councilman, you're talking about one thing. You're talking about a pension. I'm not only talking about a pension.
We're talking about the whole thing.
I'm talking about the entire city budget over 10 years.
Absolutely, and pensions being a part of it.
Yes.
That's
But there's so much more to this. And just one aside, I just forgot to mention, I did talk to Councilman Marola, and I asked him if, we can modify this to make it the second meeting in January, because what I would like to do is produce the documents to pass out to every single council member, and I would like to put a PowerPoint presentation, together, so this could be a very professional, concise topic. My goal is to go over this information with you in a public forum, allow you to ask questions, and then give you the documentation so you could use it in the future.
Councilman Lattiser.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we move this to the floor without a recommendation.
Anyone else before we move? Bob, you can stay at the microphone in case somebody has a question of you to me.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to say that...
Your name?
Rob Cody.
Robert Cody, okay.
For the last several years, I've listened to...
Excuse me 1 minute. We have a motion on the floor.
Well, did we get a second? No. Oh, go right ahead.
I've listened to Mr. Cushman make extremely articulate points about fiscal issues within the city. And I've looked at his analysis in great detail. And it alarms me because having some understanding of business, being my own person, owning my own business for the last 25 years, I look at his analysis and I worry whether or not I'll be able to afford to live in Warwick if I have to uproot my family. And I think the document that Bob just showed with these tax liens, that I'm not alone in that boat worried about what the future holds for people that live in the city of Warwick. And I know there's a lot of people that for the past couple of years have been wanting to ask questions, for example, to the actuaries. And we were promised an amount of time to ask questions to the actuaries, but that never came to fruition. So it seems like each time that we want to look at an issue which we feel is looming, basically a crisis ahead of us, I think we'd like to know what the impact of that crisis is and how that's going to affect us moving forward. 2 years from now, 5 years, 7 years, and 10 years. So we can make our own decisions as, frankly, do we want to stay here? Are we on the road to be able to solve these problems? Are we going to be able to increase taxes enough to be able to meet the demands that and the costs that it takes to operate a city? And I think, in all fairness, Mr. Cushman has done an exemplary job of putting these facts together, and all of his facts are taken from city documents that are public documents. Now, I've been in this body when I have seen the rules suspended for everything from devocalization of dogs, stop signs, to private industry putting up subdivisions, to the airport, to how many chickens we can raise, how many dogs and cats we can raise, and there's never been an issue about granting any of those people time, even so much as the gun legislation that was presented on 3 occasions from someone who doesn't reside in the city of Warwick. And as pertinent as her argument was, which I fully support, she was allowed the time. Here we have a former elected official with a master's degree, business analyst, who his hobby is numbers. I would respectfully beg that this body allow some opportunity for him to present this publicly, so at least we can taste the medicine that we're going to have to swallow in the future. And again, I would respectfully ask all of the council members to get this out in the public once and for all, to allow this that opportunity so we can at least digest this, and then everybody will know exactly what we have. We can no longer operate putting our heads in the sand and not wanting to look at that elephant in the room. As you said, Councilman Gallucci, $240 million healthcare liability policy that we had in the 70s. It hasn't gone down. It's gone up. So we need to recognize the trends. Why has it gone up? Why isn't there a piggy bank for the health care? It's in 10 years from now, what's it going to be? It's going to be 330 million. So to look at a trend, I think, even in a household, is so important so you can make sound fiscal decisions. And in my case, and I'm sure in other cases, and in 7,000 other people's that are listed in that newspaper today, are we going to stay here? Are we going to be able to afford to stay here? Are we going to be able to raise our children here? And I would like to be able to do that. So I really think it's pertinent for Mr. Cushman to have the opportunity to present his facts as a gentleman that he is and as an esteemed academic. It would be wonderful for him to have the opportunity in front of this body, and I fully support it, and I hope that you will as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Roy Dempsey.
Roy Dempsey, Ward 1. I'd just like to thank Mr. Cushman for all his work that he's done over the years. I mean, obviously the man has spent a lot of time putting this data together. And I think that people of Warwick, I don't know if there's another citizen in another city that has a man like him or a woman like him that has gone to the extent that he has in putting these numbers together. Now, in terms of what he's been classified as, and I know certain people in his council have said he's put himself out as an expert. In fact, he has never. And I've talked to Bob, and during this last campaign with the mayor, against the mayor in terms of with Stacia Hurley, never has Bob presented himself as an expert on any of these numbers. Bob has only put himself out there as someone who's bringing these numbers together. Now, should that be his job to come before here, come before this body and present this totality of what's happening in Warwick? I say no. I say it's the man who's up there, or down there, wherever he is, who never shows up at this body. I think it's the mayor's obligation to come before this body and tell you what in totality, what the numbers of this city look like. So I have to give him credit. I just want to give him credit for what he's done. But the numbers...
Time out.
Yeah.
Let's stick to the issue. The issue is, should Bob Cushman come before this council?
The issue is that no one apparently is going to take on this obligation to present to you or to present to the people of Warwick the finances of this city. Okay? It hasn't come in the past, and it looks like it's not going to come in the future from anybody in the executive branch of this city. Now, in my mind, and having seen how Mr. Cushman has put this together, having looked at the numbers in the past, and like Mr. Cushman, comes from a professional background, having a professional degree, having a master's degree, also having been a CPA, I can tell you that he hasn't doctored any numbers. He has just took those numbers either from the actuarial reports or take them from the healthcare experts that have come before this body, or have took them from the budgets themselves. In no way has he said anything about being an expert. So all these are numbers that should have been pulled together by someone else, but fortunately, Mr. Chairman, fortunately, have been put together by Mr. Cushman, and I think he affords a place here to bring those numbers forward and to show you, not to tell you what to do, not to tell you what decisions to make, but just tell you what these numbers look like and how they have trended and where they are putting us and where they could put us in the future. I think it's very important to see this. I don't know why you wouldn't want to. You're like the board of directors. Why wouldn't the board of directors want to have the executive come before this body and present how well the city is doing? But the executive is not. But this man is better than the executive because this man knows the numbers. So I just say to you that I think the people of Warwick deserve, and I think you deserve he deserves you to listen to him as to what these numbers are. And that you should give him a chance. Like you said, you've had other people up before you. I remember sitting in this audience when you had the gay lesbian group. Everyone. I mean, you had 50 people march before this body. Not one objection. Not one objection. Now, there's not going to be 50 people out there that's going to listen to Mr. Cushman, but there's going to be some concerned citizens and hopefully you. And I don't think this has anything to do with the school department. The school department's been level funded. This is the city. This is your obligation right here, not the school department. No, he has nothing to do with the school department. His numbers are with the city. And I think it's your obligation to hear him as your deliberative body for this city, and you are looking at after the finances of this city. I think it's your obligation to take a look at and have him present these numbers to you. Thank you very much.
We're going to have 5 more minutes before we go into session. Don Frank.
Don Fife, Ward 1. Mr. Chairman, thank you, Bob, for the great presentation. As Bob mentioned in the Warwick Beacon dated last Thursday, 11/13, 1,500 people are on tax sales because they haven't paid their water and sewer bill. Another example why people can no longer afford the Warwick Sewer Authority. This is a perfect example why we need people appointed to the Warwick Sewer Authority, to the Warwick Sewer Review Commission, who want to put new sewer construction on hold until they can figure out how to reduce sewer costs. We need balance on the commission and not a total one-way slant like it was last year. Councilman Lattisaw.
Don, respectfully, let's stick to the legislation that's before us, okay, and Mr. Cushman.
I'm getting to that.
Let's get to it now.
All right. Councilman Lattisaw, you can stack the commission all you want, but the residents know the Warwick Sewer Authority is out of control. 1,500 people. That's a lot of people. And if nothing changes, it's going to get worse.
You can discuss that with Councilman Lattisaw at another time. We're discussing Mr. Cushman's request through Councilman Marola to appear before this council. Okay, you can discuss the sewer commission with Councilman Lattisaw at another time. Anyone else? We've got a couple of more minutes.
Hi. Councilman, thank you for giving us the time tonight. It just baffles me that we have to sit here and literally beg you, is what it sounds like to me, to get the time, to have the time to present this data. We should be thanking Bob Cushman for what he has done. I thank him. I did something bold and daring, and I took a chance. I ran for mayor of City of Warwick, and my primary goal was to wake people up, to wake up the public. They're still, unfortunately, sleeping. Only 21,000 came out and voted. Maybe they're just so disgusted. I'm disgusted. I'm concerned. I took a look at Bob's numbers, and I was floored. And it's going to get worse, and I think that we can already see it happening, where we're arguing over how much money we have for roads, how much the fire department comes in here, all 90 of them dressed in black, because they're trying to bring attention that they need more money for their apparatus and their fire trucks. They're, running into safety issues. And it's going to keep going back and forth. We already see it happening. You wanted an answer as to how this should be done. We have Pilgrim Senior Center, Tollgate High School, get everybody at an auditorium, the union leaders, the chairman of the retirement board, Mr. Marciano, who said these numbers were inaccurate and misleading. They're not inaccurate and misleading. These are the facts. These are the real numbers, and they have to be addressed. We can't keep sweeping this underneath the rug anymore. We can see what's happening to the people in Warwick. They can't afford to pay their bills. We have people leaving. We're losing our population. I talk about it every day. I have the same argument with my husband. Should we stay or should we leave? But you know what? I'm going to stay. We get a lot of criticism. Give up, walk away. We're the haters. We're the pains in the you-know-what. No, we're not. We are concerned citizens. And I'm sad to see that it's only a small group. I joined them because I feel their concern. I share their concern. And we shouldn't be afraid to address this. This is very important. We can see what's happening in Coventry. We can see it's a domino effect of bankruptcy that's hitting the state. It's happening. We know Providence is broke. Nobody wants to face it. Mr. Healy's here. He knows. He ran on